All right, so we are now going live. So we are starting at 7:10, and again, we apologize for the inconvenience of getting a different link last minute. Um, but I'm so grateful for you all to be here this evening. And I do see some new faces this evening and some returners. So thank you so much, Amelia, for returning. Thank you, Lydia, for returning. And if I am mispronouncing your name, please correct me because I want to make sure I'm pronouncing everyone's name. And thank you, Ms. Purnell and Sharon, for attending this evening. And Lydia was our guest speaker from last week when we talked about praising your way through. So it was amazing, and I'm thankful that you are here tonight as a viewer, as a guest. All right. So for those that is your first time attending, my name is Miata Harris, artistically known as Mia Soul, and I am a poet, author, and educator, and most recently a creative wellness practitioner. Um, So the Suffer Well series, what is the Suffer Well series about? Suffer Well dropped into my spirit the phrase during the summertime, the end of the summer. And I kept asking God, what does suffer well mean? And what he revealed to me is that when you are going through a season of transition, or not necessarily just a season of transition, but a difficult time, you're in a space that's hard, that's challenging, he's reminding me and that to share with others that you are not alone, that even if you're in a space that is difficult, challenging, experiencing a lot of tests and obstacles, you don't have to lose your faith and you don't have to lose your hope. And tonight's topic, we are talking about seeking wise counsel and healing from church hurt without losing your faith. That is going to be our topic today. And for each of the episodes that we've had, these are women that have helped me on my journey in my season of transition, okay, whether directly or indirectly. So, indirectly, meaning that we don't live in the same state. Our guest speaker today is coming from Atlanta, Georgia, and I live in Maryland. So, but she has definitely helped walk me through my journey. And if you have read the bio, that is one thing that she does, and I can attest to that, that she will walk with you on your journey in a season of self-discovery. Okay, so let's welcome our guest speaker tonight. Her name is Shantae Miller. So thank you so much, Shantae, for joining us this evening. How are
Thank you.
you?
Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be here with you tonight.
Thank you. And before, excuse me, we officially begin with our interview style discussion, I wanted to share a little background on how we met because, like I shared, we do not live in the same state. So, how did we meet? All right. So, I started my journey back in 2014, my spiritual journey of just seeking guidance and just asking God for clarity. But it wasn't until 2019 that I felt a shift in my spirit. And in 2018, I had graduated with my master's of arts in teaching. And I was really, praying and asking God what will be next for me. Like, what will He have for me? And I met a lady online named Linda King, Dr. King. And she has like a business in Georgia where she has like an academy, a life coaching academy, because I really felt like may have been leading me in that direction, because I knew during my transition season that I was meant to help other women, right? But I didn't know the capacity and I didn't understand the clarity on that. So she has an academy. I believe she's a minister as well. I don't know too much about her
Yeah.
background, but when she realized that I was gifted in writing, she wanted me to edit some of her workbooks that she would give to her clients. So it was like one day I was sitting in my classroom and I just broke down in tears, crying hysterically. And I called out to her, to Dr. Linda King, and she mentioned that she could not provide me any counsel because it would have been a conflict of interest. And she introduced me to Shantae Miller because I believe, Shantae, you can go into detail, I believe you were a student in her academy. And she introduced me to Shantae. And when I say I cried out to God for help because my back was against the wall, and I said, God, send somebody to help me because I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't. And he heard me and he sent somebody immediately. Like when I called her, I was hysterical on the phone. And, I don't know if anybody's ever been in this space, but it's like I was crying so hard. And now reflecting back on it, I was having a panic attack. And I think that was probably the first time on my journey that I experienced
Mhm.
that. And she sent Shantae in my direction. And Shantae called me within that same week. And we had sessions together. And she has been on my journey with me since 2019. And for those that came on our sessions in the episodes, episode 2, we talked about grief and joy. And then episode 3, we talked about elevating your mindset. But the point that I want to make is that all of the episodes have been flowing. I didn't realize that I was grieving until I started planning this project back in September, October timeframe. And one of the type of grief that I was experiencing was a loss of community. Okay. I felt extremely alone during my journey, and I felt like nobody could relate to me, including the members of my church at that time. So having Shantae, somebody I can talk to seek wise counsel, really helped me along my journey to finding fulfillment and to find out who I will become after the end of this, not necessarily the end of this journey, because it's ever going.
Going,
But
yes.
so that's a little bit of our introduction. And also, one thing that I mentioned is that oftentimes when we think about community, we think about our church family, we think about our family and friends. But last year, this time, I felt a shift in my spirit and I joined a yoga teacher training. And I've never taken yoga before. It was just something that my spirit led me to. And I remember this time last year, one of the ladies that was talking with my cohort, we were exploring what kind of community looks like for us. And she said, don't disclude the people that you have, like your professionals that you have to hire
Mhm.
for your community, because that's part of community also. And there's no shame and guilt in it. So the guest speaker for episode 3, she's a transformational with her a few years ago, and the same with Shantae. I have worked with her as well. So we are all part of a community. It's not just family, friends, or our church family. Okay, so that was a great introduction. So Shantae, tell us a little bit about you on how you became a minister, trauma support specialist, and a life coach.
Okay. Hi everyone. So I've been
Oh,
in
I
church.
don't
Can you
hear
hear me?
you. Wait a minute. Say something now. Let me.
Can you hear me?
Uh, Ladies in the chat, can you hear Miss Shantae, or is it just me? Can you put in the chat? Say something, Shantae.
Y- You can
Okay,
hear
Miss
me?
Purnell says she can hear. Okay.
I'm
Ooh,
buffering.
child. All right, go ahead, Shantae.
Okay. So I have been in church all my life. So I have been a minister since I think 2012, 2013. Actually, no, it was 2011. So I've always been on a track for ministry. Because I at one point I wanted to be a pastor. And so that has been my life, mission was to go that route because I love God. I wanted to be I was going to be a pastoral counselor. Um, and and how it affects our bodies, how it affects our minds, how it affects every part of our life. That's when I went to get help. I got help for myself because I suffer from many health issues, and to be honest, the root of them was being traumatized. The amount of trauma that I dealt with caused my whole being to be sick. And so I was on a journey of healing, and trauma coaching became a result of my own healing from that.
Okay, thank you so much, Shantae, and thank you everyone again. Like I said, the other episodes have not been like this, and I apologize deeply. I do, but I was able to catch the ending of what you shared, Shantae. But I can hear you now, y'all. So, woo-hoo, thank you. We're gonna keep going
Keep
through it,
going.
okay? And like I said, the ladies, if this is your first time coming on, please don't let this discourage you because, like I said, this is sometimes that happens. Tech issues, we've had the pandemic and we had to roll through. So thank you all again for giving us grace because I
Yes.
need it. Okay. So what I would like to share with the ladies that's on the call is that you can still love God and hold on to your faith even though you've been wounded by his people. The wounds of the heart never get healed if you don't address the issue. Okay. So I want to begin because we are talking primarily about church hurt. And before we get into that, as I was planning out the series, I had thought that the series was going to be, the episode for tonight was going to be about faith and mental health and spiritual health, as well as why it's important to pray and go to therapy, right? Because I've struggled with anxiety, and hearing the other guest speakers in the past episodes, they share their journey of anxiety, depression, and grief. So, but as like 2 weeks ago, I called Shantae. All right, did Shantae just drop off? Okay. She'll log back in. Okay. Okay. Oops. Sorry, y'all. Let me add her back to the stage. Okay. Shantae, you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, you did drop off. Okay. Ooh, this is a learning experience. I would not use my phone next time. Okay. Where was I? I lost my train of thought, y'all. Um, so yes, basically what I was saying is that I thought it was going to be on pray and therapy. Why it's important to have that. But as I was praying and meditating 2 weeks ago, it kept dropping into my spirit that we need to seek wise counsel, and that um, many people may have experienced church hurt, but don't know exactly like how that feels, to know if they are being you know subtle disrespect from church members or church leaders. So, and this is a very challenging topic, but it is very necessary. And like I shared, um, even if we've been hurt or misused from a church leader or ministry leader, we don't have to lose our faith, even though we've been wounded by others. So, I want to begin with the definition of church hurt. And church hurt refers to the emotional pain or trauma experienced by someone due to harmful actions or behaviors within a church community, often including manipulation, exclusion, judgment, or abuse, which can be inflicted intentionally or unintentionally by church leaders or members of the congregation. Okay? So, again, I didn't realize that I was experiencing church hurt. And when I was having sessions with Shantae about 5 years ago, that was the bulk of our discussion. And I did not have the language then to identify it as church hurt. However, the ministry that I was a part of didn't feel like a safe space for me at that time. Um, I was going to the church regularly, but then when I was a part of the particular ministry, I felt very unheard. I felt unseen. I felt dismissed. I felt very small, and I felt isolated. And you never want to feel that way when you are in a church. You should be filled with the love and compassion, like the
Mhm.
Bible teaches us, like the pastors tell us, come as you are. But I didn't feel that way. I didn't leave out feeling better. I actually left out feeling worse, And growing up, I was told, go to church, go to church, go to church. And I still go to church to this day. But my faith walk has changed during my transition season. And also the way that I worship has changed. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. And the question that I want us to think about, um, I want you to reflect. And for today, I don't want us to just talk about the types of hurt. My goal is that you can walk away with something. Walk away knowing that um, there's strategies, there's coping skills that you can use to help if you've ever experienced feelings of being unseen and unheard. And also, there's steps that we can do to help move forward and heal. And today's episode is going to be different. It's a different one for the technical issues, but it's going to be different. And as far as if you have any questions, ladies, feel free to put it in the chat, and then Shantae is going to help with navigating this conversation today. Okay. So, how would you define, Shantae, community, and what does community look like for you?
So I define, first of all, community can be as little as two people, really. Because remember, where two or more are gathered together, God is, right? Well, He's with us anyway, but we need two, at least two people, with like-minded, with on the same path, in the same mind space. Because you can still have a community of people, and they're all in different places in their journey, and sometimes that could be hard, because you're trying to navigate. A lot of times we deal with a lot of comparison and those issues that we have not dealt with, like not feeling like you're enough. And until we deal with ourselves, the foundational level of who we are, it's hard to really thrive in any community, really. But community is a people that you can talk to, or that you can relate to, that has to give you counsel, to give you wisdom, to help you on your journey, that's either been where you are, or are striving in the direction that you're going on.
Okay. And thank you for sharing as far as like what community looks like for you, because I definitely feel like community is very important when you're in a season of transition, and there's healing that comes from community.
It is. It really is. I mean, because a lot of times we're in our head. We're in our head a lot, thinking, but someone else can come and see something different. So we is a different perspective when you're with a community. People can
Mhm.
see where your blind spots.
Right, exactly. So who do you turn to in your community when you are seeking wise counsel?
Well, I have several people that I turn to. I have a minister or a pastor that I consult with. Sometimes if I have a challenge, I also have close friends that has walked with me on this transitional part, who knows where I'm going and can lead me and guide me. I've also I've also has had have had counselors, mental health professional that I worked with, that I was able to sometimes you need that person that you can actually get out your thoughts because they're in your mind, you're in your brain, they keep going around and around, and you need someone to listen to you. um the answer really is within. That's the answer comes from within. So God has given us the gift and the ability to, the scripture says, he's given us all things pertaining to life and godliness. He's already given it to us. We have to begin to unpack it. It has to be unfolded. So if we understand that a community will help us in that unfoldment, but we have to trust them enough to be able um to tell them how we feel without being judged, without being ostracized, without being put in a place like, what's wrong with her or what's wrong with him. So you have to have trust there first.
Mm-hmm. And I loved how you mentioned various people that you have reached out to, sought for wise counsel, because oftentimes I felt, and somebody told me this, is that you can only seek wise counsel from somebody in your church. And I was like, I don't know if that's necessarily true,
No,
because
absolutely
it
not.
could be your prayer warriors. Like one of my sister friends, Amelia, that's on the call now. I've reached out to her, and that was, uh, wise counsel,
Hmm.
right? Um, giving me advice, spiritual guidance, and just advice. That's seeking wise counsel, right? So wise counsel is somebody, and oftentimes we think it's somebody that's like much older than us, that's in
Hmm.
their 60s, 70s, the mothers, the grandmothers of the church. But oftentimes age doesn't have anything to do with
No,
wisdom,
no.
right? So it can be somebody that's younger than you that can
Hmm.
provide you with that wisdom that you need. And that's what I feel like, that's why it says wise, seek wise counsel,
Hmm.
because you want to surround yourself with somebody that's going to give you words of not just encouragement, not just to feel dismissed and brushed off. Oh, you'll be okay. God will fix it, and then move on. But really and truly, when I was in the space where I felt isolated, um, in a community, it led me into solitude. And that is where my relationship with God was developed. It wasn't necessarily developed when I was 6, 7, 8, 10 years old, going to Sunday school or going to children's church. It started when my hurt started. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So one thing that we've shared in the last few episodes is that nothing is wasted,
nothing.
right? Nothing that we go through, even though we don't understand it, and you may not understand the fullness or the meaning of what you're going through, maybe 2 years, 5 years later,
Hmm.
but his plans will unfold. And looking back at that situation a few years ago is letting me know now that what I needed was a relationship with God first,
Yes,
right? And
that's
then he will continue to guide us and lead us to where we should go. And before we leave this call, I don't want anyone to think that Mia Soul says don't go to church and find a different community. That is not what I'm saying. Please don't think that. However, I'm saying that it's important to be surrounded in a community that values you and that's aligned to what you believe in, because there is a lot of judgment,
hmm
unfortunately, that goes on in church. And one of my teacher friends, I had called her recently, Sharon. Hey, Sharon, thank you for coming on, because what I was seeking was community, right? And in 2019, when I felt that shift, I said, I don't really have anyone to talk to that can relate with me. And I reached out to some of my colleagues that I work with, and I said, hey, do you want to go out for brunch? You just want to talk and meet up quarterly, once a month, or every once in a blue moon. And we did that. And I didn't
hmm
know why God was telling me to do that, but we did that for at least like 4 or 5 years consistently. And not only did we get together for brunch, but we also got together to pray. We did devotional together, especially during the pandemic. I led prayer calls, and other ladies led prayer calls as well. And to me, that was seeking wise counsel, because we were leaning on each other for that community. And I'm forever grateful for that. And God will answer your prayers. It may not be in the way that you may want him to, because I was seeking that sisterhood from the church community, but I got it in another format.
And I think that we limit ourselves when we only see the church.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we are human beings. We are people who God placed into the earth, and we don't know who has the answer for us. God has a mirage of people, different religions, everything,
Mm-hmm.
and they all have a piece. And they can say one word and they'll pop. It's something within us will jump. Um, I have met people, like, even in my job, my employer, my previous boss, she was part of my community. She taught me things. Did she say Christ's name all the time? No. I mean, do they have to say Jesus' name all the time? No, absolutely not. But they can be wise counsel to help you in aspects of your life. So we're not looking for just the church structure, because first of all, church structure is basically the ideas of someone's idea about who God is.
Mm-hmm.
That's what religion is. I think I'm getting ahead of myself right now,
No, you're
but I
fine.
want to talk about this. When we look at religion, religion is an idea about somebody had an idea, or someone had an encounter with God, and they formed a whole system around that idea. All of the religions there's over 4,000 religions, and they formed this structure around their specific beliefs, or around what they believe, or what they saw, what they experienced. But we can't limit God to that specific situation. God is so much bigger than we can ever think, and he is always inviting us to know him. He said know him. He didn't say no church. He said know me. And I think that that's where we get kind of in muddy waters, because we've been told you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do that. But the first thing is to get our foundation right. Our formation needs to be God is my breath.
Mm.
He is the very breath that we breathe. When we inhale and exhale, we breathing God. I'm breathing God. You're breathing God. Because it's his life force. It's life force. And he is the life force. So when we have that perspective, and we see him as he's in me, he's around me, and um that's the first point we have to get to, because everything is from inside. The
Mm-hmm.
kingdom is within, right? So when we look at it from this perspective, the kingdom is within me. That means I need to discover the kingdom that's within me.
Mm.
Before I go out here and look, I need to find out what's here inside of me. And
Mm-hmm.
that's self-discovery.
Yes. And I loved how you shared that as far as self discovery is within you, because when you are on a journey of self discovery, it's very spiritual. Why? Because you're constantly seeking God for clarity, for guidance, for answers, and somebody in the church shared with me that the only way I'm going to grow spiritually if I come to church regularly or um, come to Bible study every week. But because last week we did talk about praise and worship, my worship style changed, right? And I don't just worship in church on Sundays, right? So worship can be going for a walk, and then I listen to a song, and then I'm got my hands up and I'm praising him on a walk in a park, and it turns to a prayer walk. And I remember when I asked the ladies last week, how do you worship? And some of them put their responses in the chat. But then also when I rephrased the question, we got a little bit more answers like what is your morning routine?
Mm-hmm.
I work an hour away from my house. So when I am driving, I'm listening to gospel music. I'm listening to Christian podcasts. And that's my form of worship, right? So like you said, sometimes I feel like in the church, they put us in a box and say
In a
there's one,
box.
but what if the box is not fixing? Like, it's okay to be outside the box. There's nothing
Mhm.
wrong with that. And that's one thing I had to learn in this newer version of me. Like, it's
Mhm.
okay if it's not necessarily exactly like how other people worship. It's expansive.
It's very expansive, and God is expansive because he is all in all. Like he is. I mean, you talk about walking in nature. I love nature. I mean, I can go out and I love hugging trees. Okay, I mean, so I'm a tree hugger, and I love going out in nature and just sitting with God and just looking at the beauty. That's worship. I don't have to say a word. I'm worshiping God in his because of what he created. And so we put God in this small box and saying you got to do it this way, or you got to do it this way, you got to do it that way. If you don't do it this way, then then you're not pleasing God. Well, who said that? Who said that? Is
Mhm.
I've not seen that anywhere at all. So we have to redefine. We have to rethink and reimagine how we're defining God, because he said your wisdom is a drop in the bucket to who I am.
Mhm. Mhm.
So who we are, what we know about, we don't even know all that there is about God. We only know in part. So he only gives us, and as we move with him, in intimacy, as we move with him in solitude, as we move with him in knowing ourselves, our lives begin to unfold.
Mhm.
Those things that he spoke to us 5 and 10 years ago, 15 and 20 years ago, because it becomes a puzzle. It's like, wait, all of that was for, how did I get here? It begins to make sense because he said, I knew you before the foundations of the world. So if he knew us before the foundation of the world, and he said that my thoughts towards you are good and not evil, period. My
Mhm.
thoughts are good. So if God's thoughts about us are good, then God, how do I get those thoughts? How do I think like you think?
Mhm.
How do I think about myself the way you think about me? We have to begin to change our dialogue with ourselves and begin to start asking questions. Well, God, what is it that you think about me? And that's how I really begin my journey. I began because I was, oh my God, when I first gave my heart back to the Lord, it was really after an overdose. I had an overdose on drugs, and I went to the hospital. They gave me less than a 50% chance of living, but in that period, I had some encounters.
Mhm.
But after the fact, I I was really really depressed. I mean, it was dark, dark, deep, deep, deep depression. Like I didn't take a bath depression. Like I
Mhm.
couldn't take a bath for 2 days and 3 days, or that I couldn't. It would hurt me to hear somebody speak to me because that's how bad it hurt me. I was sitting in the house in the dark because I couldn't function, and I would be like, God, what's wrong with me? Because all I'm hearing in church, only thing you got to do is praise the Lord. All you gotta do is praise him. All you have to do is thank him. He's good. So everything that I was experiencing was against everything that I was being told.
Mhm.
It did not mirror anything that I was told, because I did all of that. I prayed, I fasted, I did I did all the good stuff. But and
Mhm.
yet I was still battling with depression. I was still battling with with um with not liking myself. I was still battling with all these things. And I had to come to the place where I'm like, God, okay, either you lying or something's wrong with what's wrong with me.
Mhm.
And then on that journey, he began to talk to me about, I want to read something to you. Can I read something?
Yes, of course.
This is the first. Um, I think it was in 1996, 97 was the first time I heard the Lord's voice, and he would speak to me in words of comfort, because I was just like, I'm like, I was better off on drugs. At least I was sane. You know what I mean? I
Mhm.
felt like, I'm like, at least I was happy. I couldn't understand. I'm like, I done gave my life to you, and now this is where I'm at. I mean, really? I didn't understand. And so I was struggling. I loved God. I mean, I loved him with everything I knew, but at the time I didn't know that my perspective of myself was so off.
Mm.
I didn't like myself. Everything I was the words that I was speaking to myself was negative. That unconscious bias that I had towards myself, based upon what people said, what the church said, what they said you got to do. So I'm trying to become all of this for them, but I lost myself. And
Mm.
so one of the worst thing he said to me, because I had an issue with men. Okay, just want you to know. But I said, he said, let me be the man who whispers in your ear.
Mm.
Comfort, peace, and my presence are what I have to offer you. My salvation, my stability, and soundness is what I will give you. You don't have to wonder if I am who I'm say I am. Come and experience me. I want to ease your mind. Let me whisper the love that I had for you since before the foundation of the world. For I've called you, O daughter of Zion, and you are my bride. Let me rock your world of confusion, despair, and regret, and let me replace it with peace. I will comfort you as you rest in my arms. Look into my eyes as I breathe new life into your emptiness. I will enlarge your
Mm.
heart so that you can follow close after me. Attach yourself to me and trust that I will take you on a journey of a lifetime. Now,
Mm.
this was for me at that
Yep.
time, but for everybody who receives it. But at that time, I was in my worst state. But God seen the end. He saw where He was taking me.
Mm-hmm.
He's in the beginning. He's the beginning. He's the end, and He's in our middle to bring us to where He is. And sometimes, a lot of times, I know for me, church was my everything because that's all I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived on the very breath of my pastor. Um, I mean, just everything and all of my experiences. But that's not how it's supposed to be. I mean, I was so fascinated with, because you need, in order to get to God, you need to come through me. But what in the world? What? That's not even scriptural. He said, if you seek me, you will find me. And another thing is, a lot of times we don't understand that He doesn't, we speak and you hear me, but God is energy. He
Mm.
speaks on, his language is a different language. He knows everything about us. He knows every silent word, every unspoken word. He knows it all. And his goal is to get us from where we are to where He's called us to be from before the foundation of the world. Jesus said one thing. He said, let me come in the volume of the book that was written about me.
Mm.
There's volumes that's been written about us in heaven. God has given, there's volumes about us. And so we want to find ourselves seeking for the volume. We want to find that book that God has placed all His mysteries about us, all of His secrets, all of those things. And unfortunately, we all go through a path of hurt, of
Mm.
church hurt. We go through the pathway of hurt. But that's an open door to find Him. When we look at being hurt, we're looking at, man, I'm hurt. I'm just, and it's okay. And this is the thing. My last encounter with church, I don't go to church. I have a
Mm.
relationship with God. Okay.
Mm.
I haven't been to church in 5 years, 4 or 5 years. But I have become, since I've left the church.
Mm.
I
Yes.
have become stable. I found myself because I'm in God. And so I found the true me because I wasn't looking for someone to tell me who I was. Right. But I remember, and this is the thing about being hurt from church. You have to allow yourself to be hurt. Allow it. Go through the feelings, go through the emotions. It's okay. If you're mad, I'm mad. You see what I'm saying? Like, for me, it was for a long time. I didn't talk to the Lord. I didn't talk to God for a long time. Like, I don't even want to pray. God, I ain't got nothing to say to you.
I've been there. Yeah.
Because we lump him up with what they did because they represent him, right? So we lump God up with who they say they are and what they say they're doing. And so it's like, well, God, all y'all messed up, but you just leave me alone. I don't even want to deal with you. And so for a long time, it was like that. But he kept pulling at my heart. He kept tugging at me and saying, "I'm still here. I've never left you. I'm not. I'm still here. I just want you to connect with me." And I would open that door a little bit, and the next time I would close it again. No, Lord, I don't trust you either, because you allowed me to be hurt. You let this happen to me. How could you let this happen to me? And it's the thing. People do things, and people do some. I'm gonna say sometimes I don't think people do things intentionally. Some people do, but some people don't do things intentionally. Is because they were taught a certain way, and they're going by that model that they've been taught. And so when you're going by a model, you're not even thinking for yourself. I'm going because this person did it, because Paul said it here, and because this person said it here. This is what it is. But God is expansive. The whole universe is still expanding. It's not stopped. It's still creation is still creating. God is still creating. So if the creator is still creating, don't you think he has other ways?
Right.
He has
Right.
everything's in his power.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, if you seek me, you will find me. One of the things that when I was in church, it was younger in church, it was almost you better not do this because you might get too far from the Lord. You might not, you better not go here because you open yourself up to devil. What you
Right.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm seeking God, he said I'm gonna find him, period.
Mm-hmm.
Because he knows my heart. Even if I go the wrong way, he's gonna come and find me because I'm seeking him. And we have to understand that even in the midst of our swaying or going a different direction, even if we go off rails or we think that we're going off rails, he's with us. He said, I've hemmed you in. And so he wants us to know that we are hemmed in with him. And even in the hurt, he wants to eradicate those places of hurt, those places of injury, those things that people done in his name.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way we can do that is discover ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I just loved everything you just shared. And I see the chat, and I want to acknowledge, just in case you're not able to see the chat, and just go back and read out what a few of you have said, going back to Amelia as far as wisdom. Wisdom, as a definition, is knowledge applied. What you stated about age is not defining who you may have the knowledge is so true, but God will give you the discernment, absolutely, whom we are to connect to. So it's all about the connection. Absolutely. I see a lot of amens. The ladies are agreeing with you. So good. Ladia mentioned, thank you for your transparency. It's a process, and God faithfully walks with us through our
Yes,
journey.
yes, he
Yes,
does.
yes. Beautiful, Isata. That part. Thank you, Poetic Soul, for joining, and Miss V. Purnell, teach. So you are absolutely, the ladies are agreeing. You are teaching to us. You are sharing your experience, and we have to sit in our feelings, sit in that hurt,
Yes,
right? Because when we're sitting in that hurt, we're able to reevaluate and re-examine what exactly is community supposed to be with. And that's why I loved how we start off with the question of defining what community looks like for you, right? And the question that I want to ask you is, because I can relate, when I was going through my season, I was beefing with God. I wasn't talking to him. I didn't want to pray because I was like, how can you allow all this to happen? Not just when it came to church hurt, but just in general when it comes to being in the season of transition.
mhm,
But what he was sharing with me later, years later, it was revealed that he wanted me to come closer to him and seek after him, like you had mentioned, because it's about relationship. He's seeking relationship, and God is wherever we are. And I remember you even shared that with me. His presence is wherever we go. You know,
Yes.
I am a poet, and I remember one day, it was a new space, so I didn't know the other poets or hosts. And this poet said, "You look like you about to sing a gospel song." And I said, "Why would you think that?" He's like, "I don't know." So I guess it's just the way I carry myself, and God's presence is with me. You know what I mean? So it's not just in a church where we're supposed to serve and praise God. No, it's wherever we go.
Wherever we go.
And
Yes.
I love that. So, did it cause you to go into different faith communities? Or
Yes.
it, did it cause you the hurt, cause you to leave church altogether?
Well, I began to explore.
Okay.
Because my thing is, I wanted to know what is, because it was so strict, like you can't do this. I began to explore because I'm like, wait a minute, I know, and listen, I'm gonna just be honest with you. I'm like, look, I know Hindu people and they nicer than some Christians. Okay. I
Okay.
mean, I know some people, and I'm like, they ain't even talking about Jesus, but they nice and they're sincere and they, so and so I begin to explore. And I'm like, well, what is this religion? What is it based? What are they saying? And that's why I said that everyone has had an encounter with the Creator, because they don't all call it God, but they've had some type of encounter, and they put their structure around this thing. And so I begin to look and say, okay, well, how is God here? How is God not here, but he's here? I mean, we have so many Christian sects, and they say you got to do this, and everyone has their own. But when you go into other religions, I'm like, well, oh my God, well, we're saying, and I'm not saying that, God, we're saying that this person's not good because they believe this. But I think I think all religions are a pathway to enter into a place of knowing God, because I think he draws everybody. It may be like if we were in Africa, or if we were in Asia, if we were in wherever, we would be probably a different faith. Does that, I mean, and I'm serving based upon my understanding at that particular time. But I think that at that particular time, God will allow us to go to whatever means to get to us. All he wants is to call us back to him. He's
Yes.
calling all people back to himself. And I
Absolutely.
think if we can open ourselves to understand that he's calling all people, because all of us belong to him, not just if I'm a Christian, but he's calling all people back to himself, because he created all people, and his desire for all people is for them to know him. So, I believe that in the midst of, religion is just a gateway to spirituality. Now, when I say spirituality, I know you didn't answer the question
What's the
yet.
difference? Yeah, because that was one of the questions I wanted to ask, as far as like what is the difference between spirituality and religion? Because I feel like in the church we often confuse the two. And is there a difference?
Yes, there's a difference. Now, when I say spirituality, because there's all types of spirituality. There's people doing a whole lot of stuff and they say I'm spiritual. When
Right.
I say spiritual, I'm talking about God. I'm talking about the life force. I'm talking about, the creator of the universe. That's who I'm referring to.
Mm-hmm.
But that our lives are composed by him and for him. We were created by him and for him. And that we are here for him. We're here to discover him. When we have that idea that I am here to discover who God called me to be, that's my number one purpose, is to discover that. Who is God to me? Because in the old covenant, in the old scriptures, if you look before there was a church, because there was a time that there wasn't a church. Church started with Moses. But prior to Moses, it was individual relationship with God. And he met them where they were. And he led them and directed them. So if you telling me that I got to go to church to have an encounter, then Old Covenant, they're wrong.
Yeah.
When Moses, not Moses, I'm sorry, Jacob, you remember, I look at church this way. If you know about the story about Jacob and Esau, right? His mother, she had a divine revelation, or she had a prophecy, or whatever it was, that she was going to have twins, and that Jacob was going to, the Esau, the older son, was going to serve the younger son, right? So what did she do? And this is what the church does. She said, well, let me help God out. Let me find a way to make him ruler over his brother. And she conspired. And he, the story about Jacob, I'm sorry, about Jacob and Esau, how that he went and lied to his father so he can get the blessing. Well, that wasn't God's idea. That was her idea.
Right.
She meant well, because she saw something. She saw a revelation. She had a revelation, a dream or something. She had knowledge from God that this person was going to be premier, or he was going to be over this. The younger was going to be over the younger was going to be over the older. But she did not wait for God to do it his way. Which actually what she did was she pushed his time back. So Jacob had to go to Laban's house for 20, 30 years because of what she did. So sometimes, and I look at the church like that. The church, our church leaders, again, I'm not bashing anybody, but they see the prophetically, they see these things over us. They see all this greatness and all this stuff, but they try to help God out and get us there. And that's not, God is saying, I want to know you. I want to know you. I have love, yes, with loving kindness I've drawn thee. I want to know you. The whole journey is about knowing him. The whole journey is about learning who God is. And because he said life is supposed to be beautiful.
Yes,
and I'm
it is.
like, wait, what? What you mean it's supposed to be beautiful? All this struggling, all this, all this strife and all this stuff. How can life be beautiful? Well, when we're founded on the foundations of who God is as it relates to us, and we're connected this way, because we always say, is the scripture that says, we're supposed to be one,
right?
Right, but it's one this way first. We got to be one here with God before we can be one out there. There's no oneness with our brother and sister until there's oneness within.
Yeah. Yes.
So we have to find that oneness, and the only way we can find that oneness, I believe, is really deal with the trauma, deal with the hurt, deal with that trauma. And the trauma is biological. And so a lot of times we have entered in church being traumatized from our past life, or from things that has happened to us growing up that we've not dealt with. And then we get in church and they say, oh, you a new man. Forget about the past. It's over. No, it's not.
Right.
You got to deal with that stuff. You got to work through it. God he has to work that through us. He said, there's another scripture that says, working out your own soul salvation. So it has to be worked out of us. All of that old has to be worked out. But he's saying, I want to help you do that.
Mm-hmm.
And how he does that is just like you. I mean, when I met you, I love you. But when I met you,
Yeah, I was
it
a
was
piece of work,
something.
a lot,
Yes,
a
but
mess.
the thing is, and I always told you, I said, Mia, you okay? I said, you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
You're with God. You're like, no, I'm not.
Right.
I gotta do that. I'm like, just calm down. It's okay. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay. It's gonna be okay. Because when we realize that we're with Him, period, no matter what place we are, what station we are in our life, we're with Him,
Mm-hmm.
period. And He is going before us, making our way straight. He said that. He said, I'm going before you. I'm making your way straight.
Mm-hmm.
So do we believe that He's making our way straight, even in the midst of church hurt? Do we believe that He's gone before us? Do we believe that He said that my eye is on the sparrow and my eyes is watching you? Do we believe that He has our best interest at heart,
Mm-hmm.
despite what people has done?
Right.
So we have to get to that place where first, and it's okay to say I don't know, because I was there. And I remember the Lord telling me one time, He said, your greatest accusation is against me. Your greatest accusation is against me.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, I accused Him of not caring. I accused Him, and I might not have said it. I might not have said it out of my mouth, but
Right.
my heart was saying it.
Right.
I accused Him of not being there for me. Even as a child, I accused Him. When I was being abused, I'm like, God don't love me like He loves everybody else. I'm different. This is not happening to anybody else, because I lived through a whole lot of sexual abuse, a whole lot. I mean, I can't even count. It was unnumberable the times that I've been abused, and they were by close family members. So my trust walls were down, but God knew that, and the journey that He took me on was, let me take you on a journey, so I can show you who I am. Each step of the way, He's been there. Through it all, He's guided me and led me, and that's what I believe. That's what He wants to say tonight. Is He wants to lead us even in the midst of the hurt. Acknowledge it, sit in it, let Him work through. Let Him work with you through it, and be open. Right now I don't believe you, Jesus. I just don't. I don't believe. We have to be honest, because He already knows.
He already knows our heart. That's
He already knows it. And when He told me my greatest accusation was against Him, I was saying, Lord, I love you, Jesus. Thank you. That's what my mouth was saying. But my heart was saying, I don't know. I don't know if this is for real or not. And He heard that, because He speaks the language of energy.
And He speaks to our hearts too.
Yes, He does.
He speaks to our hearts and not our minds.
Yes.
And thank you so much for the transparency that you shared tonight. It's just been amazing to hear where God has taken you from childhood and different areas of your life, and that you have grown also, right? So I do want to be cognizant of the time, and that although we did have technical issues starting off, but as we come to a close, what can be the next steps moving forward for somebody that may have experienced it? Would you recommend that they talk to their church leader about how they feel, or how can they heal from their own personal experiences?
Well, I mean, sometimes you can talk to your leader, but that may not be enough. I think that the inner work has to be done within first. That inner work, if you're still in the congregation, then I will suggest you meet with your pastor and talk to them and tell them, give them opportunity to address the issue. Because if you're still there, then you're in that environment. You've not left the environment. So you have to do something to stay in, with if you're in that environment. But if you're outside the environment, I will say to you, continue on. Well, first of all, begin to find a community.
Yes.
Find a community that you can trust. And
Mhm.
trust is a big thing, because a lot of times we've been so hurt by people by ministry that is like you close your heart to anything else.
Mhm. Mhm.
And once those guards go up, it's hard to let anybody else in.
Mhm.
But I believe that God will allow you to encounter people or someone to help you on your journey. And
Mhm.
again, don't take your blinders off and say they got to be in this church, or they have to be this, they have to believe like me. No, open yourself up and say, God, I give you permission to lead me whatever direction you want to lead me.
Mhm.
Let me
Mhm.
share this with you, and because I know the time is gone. When I first came to Georgia, God told me to come to Georgia 10 years ago.
Mm.
Before I came to Georgia, I was in Maryland. Before I came to Georgia, I was blind. I was blind. I was 75% left sight. It lost a sight in one eye and about 60 in the other, and it was continually gone. I mean, it was fluctuating. So I never knew when I was able to see. And God said, "Go. I want to show you who I am."
Mm.
Now I'm leaving Maryland, my support system. I'm leaving everybody who was helping me. I'm leaving everybody who would take me where I need to go and who was walking with me. I left all of that because he said, "Come." But when he brought me here, he led me to people, and these people don't even claim Christianity. And they had, and it was, but something happened. It was like my spirit knew they were for me. See, we have to get out of our mind sometimes and trust, and it our spirit will let us know what's what, right? And so, and on this journey, he's taking me. He said, I'm gonna do this over here, but you got to get there. So sometimes we're waiting on the promise, or waiting on the word to come forth. But we have to walk through a process so that we can unpack all of that we put on, from the ideas, the mindsets, the thought processes of people, and think like God do. We were created to think like him, to create like him, to be like him, to have his wisdom, to have his knowledge, to have his intelligence.
Mhm.
All of us are intelligent.
Yes, we are.
All of us, every one of us are intelligent people. And so, because God's in us, and
Mhm.
he's placed his intelligence within us. He's placed all good things within us. So it's up to us as we begin to discover what that is. I'm just encouraging you guys to begin to discover who you are,
Mhm.
the beauty that lies within you. I mean, it's absolutely breathtaking, the beauty that we have within us. And we have to move away all the pain, deal with that first. I'm a trauma counselor, so if you need, I'm just putting it in. But if you do need, I'm here. But um, move away all of that, all those ideas and all those thought processes, those unconscious belief systems,
Mhm.
those wrong belief systems that's been implanted within us, and then you'll see differently. Your perspective will change.
Mhm.
Life will look different.
Yes. And although you weren't able to see, but God still gave you guidance. God
He did.
still provided you sight to see, right?
Yeah.
And faith to see, because they say move by faith and not by sight. So
Mhm.
although you may have experienced some visually impairment for a period of time, 75%, but you still were able to move by that faith. And that was the power and the beauty that was within you, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
last week we talked about removing the limitations that we put on ourselves, right? I wear glasses. I've been wearing glasses for, well, maybe close to 30 years now. You know what I mean? My whole life I've been wearing glasses and I still can't see, right? So going to my point is that we have to pray and ask God for that continual guidance because he goes before us. Like you said, he sees the end. And we're just like, we're so focused and fixated on the hurt, whether throughout our journey or specifically in the church community. But definitely, ladies, thank you for hanging out with us this evening. And for the final thoughts, I just want to share this with you. Being hurt by the church can be painful and it can be very confusing. It's important to not let your hurt control your relationship with God. You can still love God and hold on to your faith, even though you've been wounded by his people. It's important to not give up on your church altogether, but it's also very important to find healthier faith-based communities that align to your values and needs and that genuinely welcome you with open arms and no judgment. We want you to be filled with love, compassion, that's genuine. Not just, oh, okay, how you doing? Everything all right? Okay, and then they keep on moving and they go into their worship service. And because we end up in a routine of legalism, but that's a conversation for another day. And this topic has been so good. We went over, but I didn't want it to, end. But just like with one of the episodes, a few of the episodes, I was like, man, God, we're going to have to keep coming back because this is just so good. And I don't want it to just end with just time, but I want it for the ladies to continue to reflect and do the work for healing and for your own personal growth. Okay. So like Shantae mentioned, she is a trauma counselor, and I will share with you all a resource with her contact information as well as mine. So let's continue to connect with one another and just know that community is not just in your state. It can be in a different state. Define what community is for you and what connection looks like for you. Join us in 2 weeks, not next Thursday, but in 2 weeks. February 6th, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about forgiveness because God was like, you need to talk about it. And that's a challenging topic too, okay? So God is working with me and pulling out these topics. I was like, I'm cringing. But these are areas for healing. You've gone through the hurt, you've gone through the frustration, and now let's forgive those that have hurt us, okay? So thank you all for joining. Enjoy the rest of your night. Stay warm, stay bundled up, and join us in 2 weeks on February 6th. Bye.
Bye.